All right. So this week we have to define ethics and explore how ethics shapes leadership and how ethical behavior is reflected in public leadership. Does anyone want to go first? No? Okay. I can go first. Defining ethics, it's basically someone who, as far as I figure, someone who follows the law, does what's right versus what's wrong. They're trustworthy, they care about their followers, and they care more about um, the good of the group and the organization rather than just getting their own goals achieved. I think that in order to be a good leader, you need to have some sort of ethical standards. I feel like there are a lot of unethical leaders out there, and if your followers find out that you're being unethical, you'll either lose them as followers, you'll lose their trust, it'll have bad consequences for you. And I think we've seen a lot of this with presidents in the past. For Nixon, for example, when the whole Watergate scandal, and then he was impeached, and that obviously didn't end well for him as a leader. I think good leaders are ethical people in general. They need to be. And I think that being in the public eye as a public leader, whether it's, an elected official or what have you, I think it's more important, if anything, to be ethical, since you have the public eye on you, and it's a greater chance that you will be found out because they're kind of nitpicking and trying to find something wrong. Because a lot of people, I feel like for political stuff, especially since it's a two-party system in our country, at least half of the followers or half the country is going to be against whoever is elected into office. So they're going to be trying to find a problem. And if you're already being unethical and you're kind of giving them something to find out, it's not going to be good. And I think that system of checks and balances will hopefully encourage leaders to be more ethical.
Okay, I can go next, if that's okay. I don't know if you guys have been watching the news about that Roy Moore thing. Have you watched it lately? He's a senator from Alabama. I think he's a senator from Alabama. I believe he is. Who was a pedophile for a lot of years, and like 5 people have come forward about his pedophilia, and it's on the news like right now. It's like a big major topic, and the GOP is trying to get him to step down because he's a pedophile, and a lot of people knew about it. Now this is in relation to ethics. And now I was reading on the news that the GOP in Alabama are making people basically threatening, Republicans, I believe, not to let him, to keep him running, to keep him in office instead of take him out, even though he's a pedophile and he's been proven to be a pedophile. This is, to me, this is such a horrible example. He's a great example of poor ethics. It's just, the importance of ethics, should I say. The fact that this party is willing to defend a pedophile to keep him in office for whatever reason. It's like, I don't get it. It's baffling to me, and it's disturbing because I'm very sensitive about things like this because I was a victim of a pedophile when I was a child, when I was young. And ever since then, I've had such disgust for men who commit that kind of crime. And so this particularly was sensitive to me, and it made me think about the ethics of all this, why they're supporting this pedophile, and he's in such a powerful office. And even the GOP right now in Congress is trying to say, you need to resign, you need to quit. We're going to do everything we can to keep you out, but Alabama's fighting back, saying you better keep him in, or we're going to threaten you with this stuff. And it's so scary the way these powerful public figures are supporting such an awful person. And I've had other experiences with leaders who behaved unethically to protect themselves. I was a victim of sexual harassment, really bad sexual harassment, when I served in the Army. And I was asked by my command sergeant major to come forward about it because it was that bad. And one of the captains in my unit knew about it, and he refused to go forward. He refused to say anything. And so I've had experiences with that too, where it was personal to me. And then hearing about this on the news, it makes me think so much about the importance of ethics in the public sphere, especially, and anyway. And I know based on, sorry, I'm just a little sensitive here. I guess I'll stop here because I'm looking at the book. I didn't get a chance to finish reading chapter 11 yet because I was trying to do this presentation and deal with that. But when you're in a position of power, you have to behave responsibly. You have to have values and a moral compass. Otherwise, you're dangerous to me. That's just the way I see it. Okay, I'm going to stop here. Put you on mute.
Thanks for sharing, Melody. I'm sorry that you had to go through that. That's very unfortunate.
Yeah, I think and to what you're saying about this whole Moore thing, it really ties into what they were talking about, a persuasive campaign. He knows his audience. He knows there's a lot of people who, especially in that real Bible-heavy region, they want to believe whatever kind of works for them, whatever keeps them in power. So while he's fighting, the absolutely appropriate negative stigma that comes along with his actions, he's also, he's being hailed as somebody who they're lifting up, to go against the system. And it's absolutely ridiculous. That's just, you're right. It's a real good example of, just kind of how that persuasive leadership is working, and it's such a backwards way, but the power of persuasion. I'm glad we do chapter 6 and chapter 11 together. I think a persuasive campaign mixed with, the ethics portion kind of balances itself out. My biggest problem with the concept of the persuasive campaign, especially politically, is, there's not a whole lot of substance between, what they're saying and what they're actually doing. And that's, I don't know, it always kind of triggers me because it's like the chapter seems to state like what you're trying to do is convince people to go along with you. Only in the last step, which is, when you go through and do your evaluation, do you really check and see if what you're saying is kind of holding up true to, your actions. So I think ethics, especially in the evaluation stage of, a persuasive campaign, really comes into play there. How much are you holding true to what you said you were going to do, and how much of it was just smoke to try and, convince people to go with you and what you're saying. I think that's how the chapters tie in together. And like I said, I think that's a really good reason for tying the chapters together, because I think one without the other doesn't really cover the full ground of what we're trying to get across, which is you need to get people on your side and say the right things, but you also need to execute accordingly, because, if you're just all talk, then, you're not doing anything. That's all.
I agree with everything everybody say. How this chapter's too tied into persuasiveness. But what I don't get is if somebody is persuasive enough and they're ethical, like saying what's going on with the UCLA players. That's one thing I would like. They persuade everyone. Okay, they're good. They have money. LeVar, whatever, what's his name? LeVar Ball. The middle son of him, the basketball player who's supposed to be really famous and who have that BBB. His son is in this whole major thing that they stole some glasses in China, and in China they're serious about their crimes over there. So this ties up to the ethicalness of like, is it ethical that they do that there, and then they come down to the USA and like plead to everybody like, hey, I'm sorry, I'm young and this is gonna happen, but they don't take they don't think about the consequences that might happen here. UCLA are not doing nothing to keep the ethicalness of these kids with their scholarship because I find that because their parents are rich, that they can get away with everything. And that's not, I don't think that's ethical. I think they need to show them the consequences of look at the behavior. I can do this and I can get away with it with my scholarship and my and my education and still play ball. So what's your thoughts about the situation about them stealing and being able to still play for basketball when the ethics of stealing has persuaded everybody that they're not doing anything? Everybody's mad about this, actually. But in my argument, I think they need to suspend them to show that they can't do things like that. They are our nation. People watch basketball, especially college basketball. They can't do this, and they need to be held accountable. And I guess the college not doing anything. To my definition for ethics is the moral prospects of that governs us and our groups and what we're doing right and wrong, and how we tend to give our moral presentation to others and how they see that from us and how their behaviors can change from that. And I try to do that. I try to live ethically because I hate doing things that are bad. I get scared. I'm a scared person. I don't want to get caught by the police or anything like that. I try to do everything law. Well, I do everything by the law. So I think these 2 chapters actually taught me a lot more, and how the followership and the altruism and leaders as servants as well are very ethical. And I like that because that's how I see myself. I'm a servant leader. And I think that's all. Any else? Any inputs?
Well, it's interesting to me, perusing through this, is that everybody's different. Everybody has a different definition of what's right and wrong. So especially when you're in a different culture, other cultures might view something as wrong that another culture might be, whatever about. And so, this is such a complex chapter on ethics to me. Especially when you're dealing with a leader who doesn't know right from wrong, or at least never learned it, or doesn't care to do what's right and avoid what's wrong. I'm still trying to figure that out. I don't know what your experiences are.
Does anyone have anything they want to add? We've got about 2 minutes left.
I'm actually waiting to see what happens about this basketball controversy, honestly, because it's how it ties to ethics and what we see outside. I don't know, I just find it all connecting somehow with ethics. And if y'all haven't even watched it or anything, they just did a press release like an hour ago. So I don't know. That's all for me.